Tessa Stone loved and hated her job. It depended on the day and the department she worked with, but mostly she loved it. Today, however, she couldn't keep her mind on her work. Instead, she kept thinking about the fact that Murphy was sick, and there was nothing she could do about it. She worked in the administrative and financial department of a major hospital, so being around sick people wasn't new to her. However, actually knowing the person and truly caring about said person wasn't even in the same ballpark for her. She hadn't meant to blurt out what she'd seen like she did, but she'd been so shocked at his bruises that she'd forgotten where she was. So instead of calmly taking him aside and asking him if his back hurt, she'd pointed out that he was a mess of bruises to his whole family. And the entire Gallagher clan had freaked out with her, and it had probably made things worse for Murphy. It was apparent he hadn't known he'd bruised so easily after wrestling on the ground with Rowan. Tessa's honorary niece had been distraught, blaming herself for hurting her dragon and favorite uncle, and had to be taken home when she wouldn't stop sobbing and hiding from Murphy. As if he'd blame her. The party had broken up quickly after the others met her and Murphy in the bathroom, concern in their eyes and tones. Murphy had promised to call his oncologist and hematologist right away to set up an appointment. That had been 5 days ago. She hadn't heard a thing from him or anyone else for that matter. She knew she wasn't related to them, but she had hoped that someone would have filled her in on how the appointment went and if they had any news. For all she knew, Murphy had bruised just randomly, and everything was fine. But she had a feeling from everyone's reaction, including his, that it wouldn't be that easy. She knew he'd had leukemia as a kid at least once, and though his kind had been treatable, those things tended to come back, and the chances of getting another type were also higher. She just hoped that she was wrong and everything was fine. It had to be. "Miss Stone, I need the Lane file. Do you have it handy?" Tessa looked up as her coworker, Roger Sanders, tapped his finger on the desk in front of her. She didn't know why the man refused to call her by her first name, but she went with it. Maybe he didn't like women in places of authority since she was at the same level as he was, and that meant they were higher up in the admin levels. Or maybe he was just really formal. Either way, she called him Mr. Sanders, sounding a bit snooty since calling each other by their surnames sounded a little weird. She might wear suits and keep her hair and makeup purely professional, but beneath that cashmere and neutral tones, she was still Tessa Stone, Snark Queen, and Temptress. She slid the file over and tapped a few things on her tablet, pushing thoughts of Murphy out of her mind. She'd always worry about him because he was her friend, but she had to focus on her work for now. Once she was finished for the day, she'd find out what she could about him. "Thank you, Miss Stone." Roger turned without another glance and she raised her brows. "You're welcome, Mr. Sanders," she mumbled and went through the rest of her files for the day. Her job was to make sure that people's insurance covered everything possible. Yes, some in her position might see themselves as the one making sure the hospital got paid, but Tessa did her best to think of it as the opposite. She wanted the insurance companies to pay, not the patients, and if she had to work overtime hours finding every damn loophole she could, she would. Healthcare in this country was ridiculous, and she refused to be part of the problem.